Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to discover your purpose and achieve great things this spring, or are feeling at a dead end, then do we have the Miracles of a Definite Chief Aim show for you. Today I'll be talking with Mitch Horowitz, an undisputed heavyweight in the New Thought movement, Penn Award-winning historian, the author of Occult America and One Simple Idea, and the author of a New Thought book that continues to blow me away, The Miracle of a Definite Chief Aim. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about finding your definite chief aim this spring, overcoming dead ends, and how in the world to step forward. That plus we'll talk about Glock handguns, anarchic magic, Mercury in Chinatown, Prometheus and the Public Library, and what in the world the Nuremberg Tower and beer-drinking high schoolers has to do with anything. So welcome back to the show, Mitch. Are you ready to shine?
Yeah, I loved your lead, and we're really going everywhere. Woo-hoo! I mean, when you get to Prometheus in the New York Public Library and Nuremberg Tower, there's nothing that's off the table. That's great.
Absolutely nothing off the table. So,
right on.
Before we dive right into things, do you have a definite chief aim this spring?
Oh, without question. My definite chief aim is to chronicle metaphysical experience, intellectually, historically, and practically, and to bring that chronicling into all forms of media. That's what I love. That's what gives me passion. That's what I'm doing here with you. And that's my chief aim.
Does your chief aim change from season to season or year to year, or we're talking big picture chief aim here?
That's a wonderful question. My chief aim does not change, but the methods and the approaches that I use do change. And in fact, sometimes my own interior questions about my methods and approaches undergo radical questioning. For example, television is a passionate interest of mine. And I have a television show called One Simple Idea, which is now in its second season on the New Thought channel, which is a streaming channel. And anybody who wants to find that can go to newthoughtchannel.com. I'm going to be in the city of Denver filming 5 episodes of a masterclass show for the New Thought channel the week of April 23rd. You can attend those 5 episodes. You just follow me on social media or go to newthoughtchannel.com, and those are going to be available to a limited audience of 23 folks each. So I'm doing things in television that are very exciting to me. However, network television has always been a strong interest of mine. And I've been in whole deals with ABC and other networks, and I usually have various pitches and various shows that are in different states of development under consideration in networks. But nothing has really broken through. Nothing has really broken through in a period of about 10 years. And that's been a source of deep search and sometimes, quite frankly, consternation for me. So although my aim has not changed, I personally have to ask myself, is there something that is not fitting correctly with my big picture in terms of a certain channel, a certain form of media, a certain approach? And do I need to reconsider that? So the idea for me is not to let something go necessarily or to alter my aim, which is the same and which is moving forward on a great many fronts, often in very, very satisfying ways. But if there's some area that doesn't seem to be giving way in the manner that I would like, what am I being asked to question there? What am I being asked to re-examine? Now, it could be that I'm being asked to re-examine nothing, that the key is perseverance. You'll encounter that idea throughout Napoleon Hill's work, for example. You must persevere, persevere, persevere. And he has lots of stories typified in an anecdote that he uses called 3 Feet from Gold, in which he tells it that an engineer who had a deed on a gold mine, was digging, found nothing, abandoned it, sold off the mine and his equipment at scrap metal costs. And then another engineer came in and found a vein of gold 3 feet from where the previous engineer stopped digging. Now, that's sort of a canonical story in Napoleon Hill's literature. So sometimes, in fact, perseverance furthers. Perseverance furthers. That's the motto of Temple University in Philadelphia, which was founded by Russell Conwell, a very popular and energetic New Thought minister in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. Perseverance furthers. So sometimes that's the formula. You just have to keep going. Other times you are put in front of a very serious question about whether a certain venue, medium, or channel is the right one. So I find myself facing those questions in a very real way sometimes.
How do you discern, or what is your methodology? And I believe you're like me. I subscribe to the kitchen sink methodology.
Yeah.
But what's your methodology to begin to discern what is the reason this going forward? Is this a perseverance issue, or is this a sidestep issue, or something else entirely?
Yeah, those are very, very good questions. And you're asking those questions at a propitious moment, because I'm in the midst of asking myself those questions right now. Mm-hmm. So this is something that I can share with your listeners in real time, actually. This isn't something that happened last year or last week, but this is something that's up for me right now in this 24-hour period. One of the things that I'm trying to do, frankly, is look at whether I'm experiencing some kind of ethical friction with the path of network television, for example. Now, when I go on the New Thought channel, when I do One Simple Idea, when I do this masterclass show in Denver later in the month, the values expressed on those shows are entirely my own. The people that I'm talking to on those shows, who include Deepak Chopra and the channeler Paul Selig, who's a dear friend, Kate Shigete, who's a wonderful, wonderful New Thought writer who writes about Neville Goddard. When I speak to these folks, the exchange of ideas, values, methods tends to be very much at home with where I am in terms of character, or where I strive to be, certainly, in terms of character, in terms of ethics, in terms of integrity. I said to you just a little ways back in the show that my chief aim is to chronicle metaphysical experience intellectually, historically, practically, and to do so with absolute integrity. I would never try to sell anyone on an idea that I hadn't tested in the laboratory of my own experience. I would never fail to tell anyone of an idea that I had tested and found wanting, that didn't work. I would never omit a detail to qualify something. For example, sometimes people on the New Age, and I have a serious problem with this, they juice up stories, or they create composite characters, or they do things to give a story a sharper point or a more dramatic quality than it really deserves if it were told in the plainest of terms. I think we in the spiritual culture need to talk about ambiguity. We need to talk about successes, and we need to talk about failures. And we need to do so in a very forthright and honest way, or we're not serious searchers, and we're not really being good co-seekers and neighbors to one another. So embarking on the spiritual search with bluntness, with integrity, without embarrassment, and with full disclosure is a vital part of my definite chief aim. Now, in network television, there is often a downgrade or retrograde force that wants you to be sensationalistic, that wants to overlook or sidestep certain difficult facts or truths. This most often plays out on the so-called mysteries shows that you'll see on various cable television channels, where there's a very low standard for historical truth, where the shows are very often being made by people who have no background in journalism. There's no ethics and standards editing or vetting going on. There's just a desire to take cookie dough in the form of a historical episode and mold that cookie dough into a certain shape that conforms to the dramatic format and outline of the show. That's something I won't do. That's something I won't do. Now, I've done a lot of television, a lot of these documentaries, and I've tried on all of these documentaries and shows alike to stick very carefully to the facts as I know them as a historian. And the facts are remarkable enough. They're fantastic enough. They don't require augmentation. but I am sometimes a minority voice in that point of view. So it could be that my wish to take my gig onto network television runs counter to and runs into friction with a vital part of my definite chief aim, which is to chronicle the metaphysical, chronicle the esoteric with integrity. It has to be done with integrity. And believe me, I can assure you and assure your viewers that I have turned down network television gigs because they were making hay out of something in a questionable way. They weren't delivering the story in a straight way. They didn't have integrity. Or at times I felt perhaps they were exploiting a certain person or a certain group of people who were searching in some esoteric or occult fashion. I've turned down gigs. I've turned down gigs because I didn't feel like they were representing the search in an honest way. So it could be that my wish to bring my gig onto network television is running counter to my wish to maintain ethics and standards. That is a very hot issue for me. That is up right now. As you and I are discussing this, this is what I was thinking about last night. This is what I was thinking 10 minutes ago when I was making my coffee. This is a very real-time consideration for me.
Oh, and it's something
Here's my coffee.
I don't believe you can budge on. There's a term that's been coming to me this year. The more guests that I have, the more I learn, the more I grow. The term higher standard comes to mind.
That's a great phrase.
And to me, that means that the more you learn and the more that you understand the inner workings of things, the more you owe it to yourself because you understand the repercussions of having a higher standard, let alone for those you're helping grow as well.
Yes, that's a wonderful observation. That's a wonderful observation. You know, when I was a kid, I was very inspired by a literary critic named Irving Howe, who died about 30 years ago. And I knew him as a young man, and he, maybe 25 years ago, Irving passed on. I knew him as a young man, and he was a great source of inspiration to me. He did not have an interest in any of the spiritual or metaphysical topics that you and I are discussing right now. And if he were still alive, he would probably say to me, Horowitz, what have you gotten yourself into? He was not a fan of the New Age. But he was someone who talked and wrote in a very straightforward manner and a very ethical manner. And I admired him greatly. And after his funeral, a woman came up to me, the mother of a friend of mine who had known Irving for many, many years. She came up to me and she grabbed my hand and she said, Mitch, standards. If you want to learn one thing from Irving, learn that. Standards. And I've never forgotten it.
Woo!
Yeah.
Let's go from there and let's talk about, because this dovetails well. We're here at the beginning of springtime, and it's a different energy, and I definitely want to talk about that. But it also can be a time where we're going, wow, I'm a third into the year, and I feel like I've gotten nowhere. I feel like I'm at a dead end and stuck.
Yes. That's a wonderful question and a very realistic question, and I want to address it in very practical detail.
Yeah.
Because it so happens about 3 days ago, I got an email from somebody who I believe actually found me through Inspire Nation, through your show. She may be watching right now, for that matter. And she brought me a problem that I think will resonate in the life of almost everyone listening, pinpointed to one point or another in their life and their journey. She said to me that about a decade ago, she left a well-paying, secure corporate job with the intention of venturing out in a more entrepreneurial way. And that she was very dedicated to the kind of mind metaphysics that we deal with on this show, the kind of material that your guests always talk about. She had a very serious dedication to this material, and she was really striving over this past decade in the direction of establishing herself in an entrepreneurial manner. And that what she had found was that at the end of each month, she was able to meet her expenses in this kind of bare minimum fashion. She was always able to make ends meet, so to speak. But she hadn't really broken through. She hadn't broken through in the entrepreneurial and remunerative way that she had been hoping and that she had been reaching for. And she felt at a terrible, terrible dead end that while each month she was able to balance her checkbook, she wasn't able to get any further. Mm-hmm. And she felt really hung up. And she assured me that she was a person who, by nature, had a positive attitude, by practice, was using the methods that you discuss all the time on Inspire Nation, and yet she felt completely stuck. And she wasn't even convinced that I would write back to her. She said, "I don't think you're even going to write back to me." I did write back to her. And this is what I advised her. I made 4 observations. And I truly, truly hope these observations are helpful to this person who wrote to me. And I hope they're helpful to your listeners because, again, as we've been discussing, I would never hand anyone a bill of goods or a set of ideas that I hadn't tested or wasn't testing in the laboratory of my own experience. I would never prescribe something for my neighbor that I hadn't measured and weighed out in my own life. These are the 4 things I brought to her. Yeah. Number one, you have to make sure that your aim is definite and narrow. You can't disperse your energies. You can't channel your energies, your thought processes, your ideas, your capacity for action in a scattershot manner. It's extremely important that your aim be definite, mm-hmm. be passionate, and be narrow. People immediately want to argue with that and say, but I want this and I want that. One aim can satisfy a lot of different things in your life, but the aim itself must be exquisitely well focused. And it must be passionate. It must be something that summons a tremendous amount of emotion from within you so that you want to work on your aim more than you want to sleep, more than you want to eat. And I mean that literally. I'm not being glib. I mean that if you have a choice between sitting down and pursuing an idea or having lunch or getting to sleep, you want to pursue the idea more, and you want to pursue it in such a way consistently, not just once in a while.
I like that.
All the time. So it must be very narrow, very well focused, and passionately held. So that's number one. Make absolute certain that your aim is focused, narrow, and passionate. That's number one. Number two, as I was alluding just before, you have to make sure, and you really have to ask yourself, whether your aim is conflicting with your ethics in any way, mm-hmm. or whether the avenues that you're pursuing are conflicting with your ethics. Are you experiencing friction? When I pursue things that seem to me to violate my sense of standards, I experience friction. I experience strained relationships, difficult conversations. I finish a conversation, a meeting, an email, and I feel incomplete, mm-hmm. or I feel like I'm always leaving something out, or my energy is low, or there's unanswered questions, or something is uncertain, or I'm not hearing back from people in a normative fashion who I should be hearing back from, or something for which I feel just eminently qualified somehow isn't gelling, isn't taking shape. Why is that? It's possible that your aim and your ethics, or the avenues of your aim, are in contradiction, are clashing, are rubbing up against one another in some way. So that needs to be examined, and that's a very personal, very intimate process. I could prescribe examples, but every individual has to go within him or herself in a sustained, mature way and really ask, is my aim and the venues that I'm using to pursue it in congruency with my ethics? And then there's the third one, and this is a biggie. And here I'm really going to depart from New Thought orthodoxy and, frankly, from rationalist orthodoxy. So get ready. Have you prayed over your aim in an intensive, impassioned way? And when I say pray, I mean pray. I part ways. I disagree with the New Thought orthodoxy that prayer has to be pursued in a manner of feeling that you've already received what you wanted, or in a manner of calm certainty. Yeah, or in a matter of quiet confidence. There is no wrong way to pray, just as there is no wrong way to affirm. If you believe in God or a higher power, however you relate to it, then how cruel it would be if there was some fee of entry before you could approach that higher power with an appeal. And in fact, I don't believe that nature plays tricks on us. I think part of the reason prayer is there, part of the reason prayer is there is because there are times where we feel depressed or anxious, where we feel all bunched up and knotted up inside, and we are unable to attain that feeling of calm certainty or attain that feeling of fulfillment. We are unable to pray with that feeling of relaxed certainty that what has been asked for has already been received. If you can do that, more power to you. But there are times in all of our lives and in the day-to-day hours of our lives where it's impossible to feel that way because we are creatures of emotion, and emotion can be like a runaway horse, it very often is, that we can't control. And we do not have control over the reins or even feel that our hands are on the reins. At such times, prayer is there for us. To suggest that prayer can only be approached in a meditative mood or in a confident mood or in a mood of calm quietude, I think would almost put humanity into an impossible position. It would make it next to impossible for people who are in a state of crisis or even in a state of depression and anxiety to avail themselves of prayer. I believe in petitionary prayer. I believe that you can make an appeal in your prayers. I believe that there are lots of figures in history. You can find them in the Bible. Adam, Cain, Jonah, Moses, Abraham, a number of the matriarchs as well, who prayed to God in tones of insistence, in tones of demand, and who felt that they had reached a point in life and in their trials where they were entitled to an answer. And my contention is the answer may be yes, the answer may be no, the answer may be something else entirely. But if you believe that we relate to a higher power, you are entitled to an answer. And I feel that you can just throw open the floodgates of your psyche when you pray. If you want to go on your knees, go on your knees. If you want to cry, cry. If you want to use the language of insistence, use the language of insistence. But you are entitled to relate to a higher power in such a way that you can pray in petition, you can pray in appeal, you can pray any way you want. I'll say it again. There's no wrong way to pray, just as there's no wrong way to affirm. I don't believe that some higher agency of life has tricked us or put us into a bind or lowered a toll gate whereby we can gain entry only through praying in this way or that way. I believe that the New Thought orthodoxy on this matter is wrong, and I break with it. Now, I don't dispute that praying in a manner of confident quietude, praying in a manner in which you feel a sense of fulfillment, praying in a manner in which you feel that what you asked has already been given is effective. It is effective, but it is one way. It is one way. So I would say if you find yourself at a dead end or in any situation where you feel you need to make an appeal to the higher or to whatever concept of an infinite intelligence or God or a higher power or whatever you may want to call it, and it can be quite diffuse, I don't think you should feel the least bit shy or trapped by some conformist idea. Pray however you like, but do so, and do so with absolute passion, abandon, and the doors of your psyche just flying open. Don't neglect that. Don't neglect to ask and to make an appeal in whatever tones mirror your inner yearning, whatever that may be. No one can tell you how to pray. So that is number 3. Never neglect prayer and pray in whatever fashion you want. And then, so let's see, just to review real quickly, because I'm going to do the last one right now. Make sure you have a narrow aim, a well-focused aim. I don't mean narrow in a pejorative way or in a negative way. Make sure you have a well-focused aim, that you hold passionately. That's number one. Number two, make sure that your aim is not in conflict with your ethics. Number three, pray with complete passion and abandon. Don't let anybody tell you how to pray. Make sure you follow your heart in this matter. You're at complete liberty to do so. And finally, number four, always improve, improve, improve. Never stop improving yourself. Never stop improving yourself. Be like a master musician or a martial artist who is always training for that moment when his or her skills are required, sometimes in the most unexpected way, sometimes through the most surprising or unexpected routes or channels. I know it can be difficult. Because there may be people listening right now who are saying to themselves, look, I've been training nonstop for 10 years or what have you. I am working every day at being excellent at what I do. I'm on the brink of feeling depressed here. I'm on the brink of feeling dejected here. I'm on the brink of quitting here. You're telling me to go out and plow the field again. I've been plowing. While you're doing these other things, you have to keep working at your own personal excellence. It's just a must. If you're going to persevere above all else in that way. There are certain people in certain lines of work who are training constantly. A musician is training constantly. A martial artist, is training constantly. A surgeon is training constantly. Surgeons look askance at colleagues of theirs who are not performing surgery with a rigorous and steady regularity. You can't walk away from it and just come back to it. And that the actor must be acting constantly. The martial artist, the soldier must be training constantly. The U.S. Special Forces, so-called Green Berets, provide a good example of this. They train and they train and they train and they train, and their aim is constant preparedness for that one moment where their skills are absolutely necessary and may be life-saving. So I have to say that ethic number 4 is just, no matter what, if the word perseverance means something to you, apply it to yourself in the form of training. Never give up, never stop, and keep yourself, frankly, in peak mental and physical condition so that you are ready when you are called upon. That may mean diet, exercise, sleep. That's going to mean different things to different people, but whatever you're doing, you have to keep yourself in peak mental and physical condition as well, so that when that moment comes, and it may come very unexpectedly, these are not fairy tales. I have stories like this in my book, The Miracle of a Definite Chief Aim. You are ready. Think of yourself as a Green Beret or as a member of the Special Forces, a person who's in a position where they're always training for that one eventuality where their skill is needed right then and there. So those are my 4 steps. If you feel yourself at a dead end, try those 4 steps and try them with dedication, and let's see what happens together.
Brilliant. A few quick questions, follow-ups on this. First off, when it comes to improve, when somebody is hitting a dead end and they're saying, I have trained consistently for 10 years.
Yeah.
I love kicking them out of their box. How do you feel about getting them really uncomfortable, doing something completely, radically different at that point?
As long as it's going to aid him in pursuit of his aim. It can be something radically different if it's going to aid him in his aim. If that person needs to undergo a program, let's say you say to that person, I'll learn martial arts and come back in 5 months. He might say, you're crazy. That's wasting my time. Well, is it? It might improve your mental and physical acumen in such a way that it would help you. So I would say, don't be frivolous, and don't radically break with your profession in some way that's eccentric or that's frivolous. But if you can trace a beeline back to your profession or your art or your trade in such a way that it will make you more excellent, that can be a good way. For example, in my own life, I am I do series of articles sometimes for the publication Medium, medium.com. I'm deep into a second series of articles right now. My first series was called In the Dark, and it was a series of 10 articles on occult history. My second series, which I'm into right now, is called Real Magic, and it's 10 articles on metaphysical methods that really work, in my estimation. For my third series, I'm proposing to them more journalistic pieces where I'm writing in a more journalistic fashion about things that are going on in connection with spirituality and politics on the current scene. And I thought to myself, it's easier for me to write about metaphysical experience because in some ways I'm spinning off from personal experiences of the type that you and I are discussing right now. But it's more challenging and it keeps me sharp and focused in that area of my work as a writer to take a more journalistic approach as well. So I'm thinking of that for my third series. It's harder, it's tougher, it comes less naturally, but it also means that I keep my skills honed in that area as well. So for me, that's a departure that relates back to everything I'm doing.
Makes sense. Perfect. So from there, one of the things that we're talking about, when we're talking about definite arrow and narrow, we're talking about all of these different things. You said that we need to go within to understand in a sustained, mature way. How do we, and if we're stuck, often that's where the conflict lies, is we don't know how to go within. Too many voices going on.
Yes, that is really true. And that is a serious challenge, an issue to be dealt with. Here's how I've dealt with it. And here's how I've been dealing with it, say, over the past 24 hours. Prayer. Mm-hmm. I think prayer for guidance is helpful. I think making a suggestion to yourself before you're going to sleep for something that you want to experience in a dreamlike state can be helpful. I think it can point you towards something emotional or something associative or subconscious in nature that might manifest itself in a scene or an image or an episode in a dream that could be helpful. And I think just in the moments before you go to sleep at night, kind of inducing a self-suggestion in yourself that I want to experience an answer, a breakthrough, an insight to this problem in the form of a dream can actually be very helpful in cutting past certain intellectual barriers. I think that silently meditating, or if you have a mantra form of meditation, using that, kind of holding your issue, holding your question in mind, and silently meditating or using a mantra based form of meditation. Journaling can be helpful. And also, I would say taking a break can be helpful. It may really be necessary to tear this all up and throw it away for some period of time. Maybe you need to watch a movie. Maybe you need to sit down and watch whatever your favorite movie is or watch a television show. As long as entertainment doesn't take the place of introspection, but takes the form of a break, that can be very helpful too. Sometimes you need to put 24 hours between yourself and a problem. And that 24 hours might need to be occupied by something that's very entertaining, very fun, very relaxing, something you really enjoy, and then come back. Don't make the mistake of not coming back. Don't let entertainment become a diversion, but let it be authentic recreation and then come back.
Thank you. Thank you. A few more on this line. First off, consistency. What does that mean to you?
Well, consistency means always training for the area that you are determined to break through into. And consistency is a value that pays dividends in and of itself. It goes arm in arm with perseverance. I mean, as I was saying at the beginning of our discussion, look, sometimes the answer is perseverance. I've had this experience before where I've thought to myself, I think maybe I'm at a dead end with something, or maybe I'm pursuing the wrong avenues. I've allowed a few days to pass. Maybe I've talked to a friend or talked to a therapist or talked to somebody who I know shares my values religiously, ethically, talked to members of my mastermind group, which is another thing, of course, that you can avail yourself of, a group of very trusted, close advisors with whom you meet regularly. Napoleon Hill called it a mastermind group. I have a weekly mastermind call. And sometimes after a period of time, I will turn around and say, you know what? The answer is perseverance, or the answer is consistency. The answer is to just pick up the bicycle and get back on the bicycle and start pedaling. Because the truth is, there are times where the individual is not wrong. There are times where the individual and what he or she is aiming for and the avenues that you're using are all absolutely right. I've been in periods of crisis where I've thought, I'm going to walk away from something. And on occasion, I've talked to a friend, very often somebody in my mastermind group, or I've sat with something for a while. I've come back and I've said, you know what? That was a disappointment, but I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue. So make no mistake, everything that I'm describing here should be tried, should be attempted, should be looked into in a dedicated way. But you might come out the other end and say, you know what? I am doing the right thing, and I'm going to stick with my path. And there could be tremendous power in that.
Let's talk about, I think I want to call it, I love talking about, as you do, the dual, the opposite, what I call the opposite side of the coin. What if someone says, I know what to do, but for some reason I can't get myself to do it?
In that case, I would have to say that the person probably has the wrong aim. An aim should be actionable. An aim, by definition, must be actionable. That's why an aim is not just the same thing as an idle daydream. If I was to sit around saying, gee, I'd like to be an astronaut. Well, I'm 52 years old and I live in Manhattan. There's not very much likelihood that NASA is calling anytime soon. An aim is not a fantasy. It's not a pipe dream. It's not a daydream. It's not a fantasy. It's not entertainment. If an aim is not actionable, then it's not an authentic aim. It's just a fantasy. It's someplace you might want to go on vacation, go to space camp, but you're not going to, if you're not going to act on it, you can't classify it as a real aim.
However, with that said, you probably get these emails all the time from somebody saying, I know where to go, but I feel so stuck. I'm in bed. I'm under the covers. I know I just need to get up and get going, but there's something stuck in their ability to make that decision and flip that switch.
Right. In that case, the person does have to treat the symptoms, I believe. And I write about this in a piece at Medium called Depression and Metaphysics. The metaphysical search or the search for aspiration cannot always be a substitute for or even a complement to recovery. If someone is in bed and unable to get themselves motivated or is having panic attacks or what have you, then there is a matter of recovery that they're being faced with. And there may be all kinds of things that person needs to pursue. There may be a mixture of psychopharmacology, which I never think should be off the table for spiritual people, mixture of psychopharmacology, therapy, prayer, the metaphysical search, other things. There may be a change of venue necessary. There may be physical exercise necessary. There may be other traditional medical psychotherapeutic methods that are necessary. Throw everything at the problem. Consider nothing off the table, and consider nothing an absolute must. I mean, you have to devise your own medical and recovery program. That might be a combination of things, and it might be a combination of diffuse things. Psychopharmacology might be very right and necessary for one person, not right or necessary for another person. I don't believe you should take anything off the table as a precondition, as a prerequisite. Look into, research, consider, weigh, learn about everything. So if a person is faced with a real emotional crisis or disability, it may be that the aspirational search is not what's needed right now. It may be that what is needed right now is recovery. When Bill Wilson started Alcoholics Anonymous, his definite chief aim was to stay sober and to help other people stay sober. That was his genius. He found the aim of his life in his recovery. So looking outward might be the wrong thing at certain times in life. If you're really feeling like you're just unplugged and not able to kind of get into the mainstream of life in the ways that are necessary, there may be a recovery question there, and that becomes its own set of needs and motivations. I go through a lot of this in my article, depression and metaphysics.
Beautiful. Thank you. So when I started the show, I was talking about the energy of spring. I'm wondering
Yeah.
what you can share about what that means for us, because I feel for myself, for Jessica and myself personally, this is our on fire, get her done. We were hunkered down in the chrysalis. Now we're bursting forward. Let's do this time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, interestingly enough, we're in this phase of Mercury retrograde right now within
Till the
Western
15th.
astrology. Yeah, and Mercury retrograde can actually be a wonderful time. People think of it as a time filled with communication and transportation snafus where everything goes wrong in the digital world and with your computer and your vacuum cleaner and so forth. And some of that is true. But Mercury retrograde, in my estimation, is also a time for reconsideration, revision, revisitation of certain topics, editing things. People or issues can come back from your past for resolution in the same way that some people will traditionally tell you that during Mercury retrograde, everything gets tied up in knots. Well, if you abide by the principle that things go in reverse during Mercury retrograde, which is sort of the traditional interpretation, it can also undo knots. Things that have historically been knotted up in your life can be undone. You might glean and come upon pieces of information that are very valuable to you, that have eluded you in the past. You might encounter people from your past with whom you've had unsettled business that can now get settled and be put to rest. It is a wonderful time to revise, revisit, reconsider. Anything with the prefix re before it can be very helpful and very positive during Mercury retrograde.
Rewrite.
Yes, exactly. And in my experience, and again, astrology is not for everyone, but if you place some stock in astrology, which I do, when Mercury goes direct on April 15th, which is about 2 weeks from today, in my experience, a tremendous amount of energy gets unleashed. When Mercury goes direct, everything that has been dammed up, so to speak, gets released and goes flying out there. So use these 2 weeks as a time for revision, reflection, rewriting, redoing, reconsidering, and be ready. Because in 2 weeks, if you place stock in astrology, as I do, things really kind of fly off the hinges, and it can be a very dramatic experience, which comports very well with what's going on in the natural world in the season of spring.
We have Jessica going out to Colorado, finding us our home. She's going out on the 11th. And I have a feeling the right home for us to move into May 1. And we're having faith. We feel called out there, called out toward Aspen. And we believe it's going to appear. But I have, not in my head as much in my heart, a belief that she will be signing something on the 15th, that it's holding back and will appear on the 15th.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, you'll get to test that thesis. But I think it's a great time. But we are
open.
Yeah, it's a great time. And my sense, if I may speak esoterically, is that this has been a gentle Mercury retrograde. There are cycles where you feel like you're walking through mud or wet concrete and you just can't get anything done. As cycles of Mercury go, this has been a fairly gentle one, and watch for what happens on the 15th, for what it's worth.
Are there more things that we get or ought or would be great to do in this time to set ourselves up, to get our surfboard in the water and ready for the wave of energy that's to come?
It's a great time for spring cleaning on every level, interpreted very broadly. Do spring cleaning in your house, declutter, get rid of stuff, prepare workspaces, think about proposals, think about ideas. Look, there are also times during Mercury retrograde where one has to act. For example, where a contract has to be signed. Everybody says, don't sign contracts during Mercury retrograde. You know, ideally, if you can sign it just after Mercury retrograde, do that. But if it's going to create problems or friction or weirdness to not sign, then proceed. You just have to move ahead. You know, an airline pilot can't declare, well, I don't fly during Mercury retrograde. You know, an IT technician can't say, I'm not going to work during Mercury retrograde. It happens 3 times a year. Each time it happens is a period of between 3 to 4 weeks, depending upon your interpretation. Some people get into shadow periods before and after. I don't get into that interpretation myself. I honor it, but that's not my interpretation. So you're talking about 3 times a year periods lasting for about 3 to 4 weeks each. There are plenty of people who cannot be out of commission for 25% of the year. Airline pilots and emergency room doctors can't say, well, sorry, it's Mercury retrograde. If you have a contract in front of you, whether it has to do with real estate, whether it has to do with some professional endeavor, and you have to sign it, sign it, sign it. Be very, very careful. Look at it carefully, review it carefully, know what you're doing, know what you're getting into, think 2 steps ahead. But don't disable yourself. You can't. I mean, sometimes to maintain the trust and the confidence of people around you, or to take an opportunity that presents itself in a timely way, you have to press forward.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
On a completely different tact, different but similar, what are natural temples and why are they important?
Oh, that's interesting. I wrote a piece for Medium.com about what I call anarchic magic. Anarchic magic. I think the headline of the piece is why the best spiritual practice is the one you devise yourself. And my idea is that we all need to kind of go out into the world and create our own rituals, rites, observances, and sometimes we might find places that we really, really connect to, where we feel deeply and profoundly at home and at ease. In my piece on anarchic magic, I talk about the tower that you mentioned, Norumbega Tower, which is a tower that was constructed on the banks of the Charles River in Weston, Massachusetts in the year 1899. It was intended to commemorate a supposed Viking settlement that the explorer Leif Erikson founded on the banks of the Charles. And this tower is prohibited to public access. It's covered by grates of steel bars. But I was walking in the woods one day in Western Massachusetts, and I found this tower, and I deeply, achingly wanted to go inside. So with apologies to the municipality of Weston, I actually found a way to squeeze myself in through some loose bars on a gate. I went inside. There was all this graffiti from like Satan-worshiping heavy metal kids and beer cans and stuff like that. And I climbed up to the top of the tower. This was about a decade ago. And I felt this tremendous sense of inner calm, but also this epic aspiration. And one of the things that was key for me at that time in my life was breaking through as a writer. And I sort of announced to the natural world that I wanted to break through as a writer more than anything else and asked for all forces to come to my aid. And my career as a writer, I can only tell you, took off like a speeding train after that. And there were many accomplishments and many breakthroughs into mainstream culture. My bylines after that appeared in places like Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Politico, many mainstream places. I had book contracts with Random House. My book writing has continued very energetically to this day. And that to me felt like a kind of natural temple, Norumbega Tower. I don't want a flood of people to start going out to Norumbega Tower like after Carlos Castaneda reported taking peyote, in the deserts of the Southwest. You're really not supposed to go up there, but I did. And you can read about it in my article at Medium. And I felt like that was a natural temple. You had mentioned at the beginning of the show Prometheus. There's a mural of Prometheus on the domed ceiling of the main branch of the New York Public Library on the east side of Manhattan, which I live only a few steps from. And I also have the great privilege of being in a research room at the New York Public Library. I have a writing residency there where I'm in a research room. And I believe that the figure of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and enlightened humanity, is a sacred figure. I believe there's something concretely real about Prometheus, however you understand that. And I believe that Prometheus represents an energy to which the individual can make an appeal. I have said prayers to Prometheus, to be perfectly frank, and I have done so in this public space. It was funny. There was an old girlfriend from college who ran into me there, and we hadn't seen one another for decades. And she came up to me and she said, Mitch, and I said, yes. And I didn't recognize her. And she said, I'm so-and-so. We went to college together. And I said, oh, hello. And she said, I didn't know if I could approach you because you look like you were praying. And I said, I was praying. I prayed to Prometheus. You have to be unembarrassed about these things. If you're on the search, you are on the search. As Krishnamurti said, the truth is a pathless land. I don't look for respectability. I don't look for some kind of approbation when I search, when I pray, when I engage in anything that I consider an act of inner or sacred search. Find your spaces. Find your sources of sacredness, whatever and wherever they are. You don't have to disclose it to anybody. You don't have to come on Inspire Nation and talk about it to thousands of people if you don't feel like it. Or if you do feel like it, great. But don't allow anyone to set boundaries for you. The truth is a pathless land. You need to search without fetters or chains or containment, social, spiritual, civic, or otherwise. So I believe that natural temples are all around you. They're where you feel a sense of ease, sacredness, and a kind of epic yearning welling up within you. Don't neglect that.
Woohoo! So, coming full circle from the tower and back around 10 years later, what in the world is the Miracle Club?
Oh, the Miracle Club is my new book, which is coming out in the month of October. You can pre-order it right now on Amazon. The Miracle Club was a group of New Yorkers who began searching into the unknown in the 1870s. They later became the Theosophical Society. And I wanted to kind of revive the spirit of this wonderful group of unbounded seekers who asked the simple question, what is out there? What is out there? So the Miracle Club is my attempt to sort of distill 150 years of practical metaphysics to ask what is out there for the individual, what methods work, particularly in the area of mind metaphysics for the individual, and how can they be practiced with the greatest effectiveness. So the Miracle Club is my response to that question, and it's a very, very practical book.
Woohoo! So where can people go to find out more, find your books, and find out about your event coming up Friday and in Colorado?
Right. A lot of things going on. First of all, anybody can go to my website, MitchHorowitz.com. There are lots of links there, including my email for anybody who wants to contact me. I hear quite a bit from Inspire Nation viewers, and I'm always happy to hear from them. All my books and narrations and programs can be found on Amazon. If you throw my name into Amazon, you'll never be able to get rid of me. There's lots of things there to choose from. This coming Friday night, Friday, April 6th, I'm speaking at the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach, the Edgar Cayce Center. I will be there live. If you're in the Virginia Beach area and want to come, terrific. If you're too far away to come, you can live stream the talk. You just go to edgarcayce.org, edgarcayce.org, and you can find instructions to live stream the talk. If you're there in person, come up to me and say hello. Tell me that you saw me on Inspire Nation. I'll greet you like an old friend. The week of April 23rd, I will be presenting 5 workshops in Denver. So if you're in the Denver, Boulder area, you can come to all 5 or any one of the 5 workshops the week of April 23rd, and we will be filming those as a new masterclass show for the New Thought channel. And it's going to be really wonderful. There's a different practical topic being presented each night. It's hands-on, it's how-to, it's self-help oriented. We'll be talking about practical, actionable ideas, different theme each night. You can come to all of them. You can come to one. It'll be a TV taping. It'll be intimate. There's only going to be room for 23 folks each night. We'll really have a chance to sort of get face-to-face and be upfront and personal. And it's just going to be a great week. You can go to newthoughtchannel.com to find information on that, or you can follow me on Twitter or Facebook, and you can find more information. I'm super easy to find on either Twitter or Facebook, or you can pop me an email.
Thank you so much, Mitch. And another time I'm going to have to ask you about the number 23.
All right.
So any last words? I want to let you get going right away here.
I love being on here. I love speaking with you and your listeners. I can tell from the emails that I get from your listeners how dedicated and intelligent and determined a community you have assembled. And I'm always touched and moved when I hear from your listeners, because they are always people of great discrimination and also real practical application of these ideas. So I want to take a moment to say a word of tribute to you and the Inspire Nation viewers and listeners.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for all of the listeners out there as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this has been phenomenal, Mitch. Let's let you get going. This has been tremendous to help people get unstuck and for their springtime ahead. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the miracle of a definite chief aim, and begin breaking through your barriers today and shine bright. Woohoo! Once again, a grand slam, Mitch. Thank you so, so much.
I really enjoyed it. Anytime you have a hole in the schedule, let me know, because our conversations, they're like tonic for my whole day.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!